The following program is made possible by a grant from the Bigelow Foundation. Welcome to Area 2000. This program introduces our listeners to the scientific approach to discussion of two particular subjects, UFOs and near-death and after-death experiences. To contact the Bigelow Foundation during the work week, call Angela Thompson between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. at area code 702-456-1606. That's Angela Thompson at area code 702-456-1606. And now, Area 2000. Good evening. Welcome to another Area 2000. I'm Art Bell. And as usual, we've got a full plate this morning. We've got our roving journalist, George Knapp. And way back in Philadelphia, this time at the airport, Linda Howe, just arriving back home with her glimpses of other realities. And then it'll be Dr. Michael D. Swords, and this morning's major subject, I guess, is going to be UFOs, but his education, his interest goes into the parasciences as well. So we're going to be just moving all over the place this morning, this evening. I'm never going to be able to get that straight. Maybe in 4 or 5 years. At any rate, good evening, everybody. We'll try and start it on the right note. Let's find out what's new in the world of UFOs this week and what's coming up. And for that, of course, our roving journalist, George Knapp. George, good evening. Welcome to the program.
Well, this week we begin our UFO newscast with things that did not happen, which is sort of, as you know, the bane of what news is supposed to be.
Sure.
But which is all too appropriate in this crazy field. The first thing that did not happen is communication with the Mars Observer. NASA says the craft is either orbiting Mars, spinning toward deep space, or blown up. Take your pick. It really doesn't matter much to those who were waiting for information from that probe.
Is it now declared an absolute lost cause?
I don't think so. I think you've got people who are still hanging on that think that something might snap to life and that they still may get some information. I think, realistically, that's a pretty long shot. However, NASA has now appointed a team of experts to evaluate the possibility of another probe to the red planet, what it'll take, what the objective should be, and the ubiquitous Carl Sagan is on this panel, so we can almost rest assured, I think, that investigation of the Cydonia region, which is of primary interest, I think, to people interested in UFO and alien research, will not be a high priority on that next probe mission, assuming it ever happens at all. The second thing that did not happen is the big UFO event in New Mexico. As we have mentioned on previous programs, former government psychics had predicted a major event in New Mexico in the month of August. They staked their professional reputations on this prediction, and unless you and I, Art, have missed something on the news wires, their prediction was wrong.
George, you didn't say government psychics, did you?
Oh, yeah, they did. They worked for the government, yes.
Can you elaborate on that? I had no idea we had government psychics.
Oh, we do. I think the first guest on your first program was probably more knowledgeable on the subject than I. Psychics is not perhaps the best term, but remote viewers is the term I think that's used in defense circles.
All right, that's what caught me.
Sure, they don't want to publicize it a great deal because that would be the sort of thing that would attract budget cutters looking for headlines. But yeah, they take it pretty seriously. Anyway, these folks had left government service and formed their own company in New Mexico, and had staked their professional reputations on this prediction of a big UFO event. But there's been no UFO landing, no mass abductions, no spaceships zapping cacti, nothing. As we warned our listeners long ago, these types of UFO predictions come and go, and almost none of them amount to anything over the years. The real question in the wake of this is, why did these folks stick their necks out so far on such a prediction? What it means for the credibility of the ongoing remote viewer program run by the Department of Defense, and could this be another example of disinformation orchestrated by certain intelligence authorities to discredit or otherwise belittle UFO research in general? I'd be curious on Linda Howe's views on this stuff when you talk to her a little bit later. Art, we apparently have some pretty avid listeners in Clear Lake, California, and we'd like to say hello to them tonight. As we reported last week, Clear Lake is experiencing another wave of UFO sightings at present. It's nothing new, we're told. Residents say the same sort of weird lights and craft have been seen there for almost 40 years, It's kind of comparable to Fife, Alabama, which has had these periodic UFO episodes for as long as anyone can remember in that area.
Well, are there more of them lately, George? Why is Clear Lake suddenly in the news?
Only because the very efficient Angela Thompson has been following up the story and has been passing along the information to me. I think they have flaps every couple of years or so, and they're in the middle of one right now. The newspaper in Clear Lake has mentioned the program, Area 2000, in connection with its coverage of the UFO flap, and hey, Clear Lake, give us a call and let us know what's going on up there. An update on the situation in Russia. As we have reported previously, we managed to obtain some material from alleged Russian UFO landing sites during our journey there earlier this year. The material, which consists of some strange glycerin-looking nodules, we got it from two so-called landing sites, UFO landing sites in the middle of nowhere. Russian scientists we talked to were unable to figure out what the stuff was. We managed to put it subtly, retrieve some of this, get it out of the country. We sent it to a very respected university-connected lab here in the U.S. for analysis. I've not yet received the final written report, but did speak to the research team leader. The bottom line is they don't know what it is either. This Russian doctor that we had spoken with had speculated he thought it might be some sort of cosmic seeding operation, and if you'll pardon the expression, some kind of like outer space sperm. However, the lab told us that whatever this stuff is, it does not appear to be biological. It's not a seed as we know seeds. The mystery persists because the experts were unable to tell us what it is, where it came from, why it was found in two separate sites, hundreds of miles apart.
Will you get a chemical breakdown eventually?
I sure hope so. Could be reproduced in nature. They are speculating that it might have something to do with lightning. When we get the final lab report on the material, we certainly will share it with our listeners.
You don't want to tell us how you got it out of Russia?
No, because I'm going to have to go back there.
All righty.
Stories about a UFO movie centered on Las Vegas scientist Bob Lazar are true. There had been considerable speculation about whether this matter was going to come to the big screen in UFO circles. Anyway, Lazar has reached an agreement with New Line Cinema. No word yet on when the cameras will roll. A side note for Lazar's many critics, he did not initiate this year. The movie people came to him. In fact, there's not the first deal to be proposed concerning his story. Already, it has become apparent that some people out there don't want the movie to be made. Some junior UFO investigators have been scouring the country looking for, in their words, dirt on Lazar, with the intention of sending that dirt on to the movie people and scuttling the project. Best of luck to those folks, but it isn't going to happen. The movie will. Finally, the initial reports from last week were true. The Clark County Library series of UFO lectures and films is sold out. In fact, all the tickets for 2 months' worth of programs were gone in 2 days.
Wow.
This happens despite, as you know, Art, continued ridicule from other media here in Las Vegas, blind skepticism from science, concerning UFOs. I think there is an appreciation that regular people feel this topic is important. Regular people want to know what's going on, and I think your program really fills an important niche in that area.
And clearly, interest in it is growing quickly.
It's exactly right. I had a chance to talk to Dr. John Mack of Harvard a couple of months ago, and he feels there is a quickening of the interest in this, and maybe even feels that the visitors, call them aliens or whatever, they may be responsible for picking up the phone on this. For our sake,
well, that's excellent, George. That really does please me. I'm very happy that the interest is growing. That means that more legitimate researchers will begin to look into all of this, and maybe we have a chance of really getting somewhere shortly.
Sure hope so.
All right, George, wonderful hearing from you as always. Thank you. That's George Knapp with a lot to say this morning, and of particular interest, those materials that he got out of Russia. And on another note that he mentioned, when we do get a little further into the program and get to a telephone segment, I, too, would like to ask that anybody in Clear Lake who can catch us up on what's going on over there would give us a call. I'm glad to know they're listening. Nice to hear they mentioned us in the Clear Lake newspaper. All right, time for a glimpse into another reality. That would be our Linda Howe. who I understand is at the airport or near the airport at an airport inn or something of that order, and is doing a lot of traveling. So I guess we'll find out what she's been up to right now. Glimpses of other realities. It comes from Linda Howe, now back in Philadelphia. Good evening, Linda.
Hi, Art.
Hi.
I spent the day in Rye, New Hampshire, which is up near Portsmouth and Exeter. For those listening who are familiar with the Betty and Barney Hill abduction case, it was up in that area that famous first abduction occurred. This was the annual New Hampshire MUFON conference. It occurs on a day, on a Sunday, has for the last 3 years, and this day there were nearly 600 people in the audience. It was one of our best attended, which several people, including John Mack, one of the speakers, he and I at lunch were talking about the fact that the grassroots interest in the phenomena seems to be growing, conference to conference. The general audience is getting larger. And today, the people who did speak were John Mack and Richard Hoagland, and I'll talk a little bit about what he had to say about Mars in a second. Myself, Colin Andrews on Crop Circles, and David Jacobs. Most of these people you've had on the program in the last couple of months. But I will start with a recap of what I think were some very important points that Dr. Mack made to set the day off in what everyone agreed was the focus of the conference and will continue to be probably the focus of much of our work in the coming years. And Dr. Mack put it in those ways. Other realities, glimpses of other realities is where we are headed with all of this phenomenon, because it is not just simply the extraterrestrial biological entity that we're dealing with. There appears to be other dimensional aspects to it. And in that context, he said that he's now studied 76 UFO abduction cases and has found an interesting evolution that he has been surprised in terms of the nature and complexity of the evolution of abductees themselves if they hang in there with him as a psychiatrist. That's his background as a psychiatrist at Harvard, and working with hypnosis, and has seen them go through terrific fear, terrific anger. Many people feel like that they have been raped by some kind of a physical entity or being, or taken against their will, or all kinds of physical violations that manifest in terrible trauma. As he said, he has never in his years as a psychiatrist seen the kind of trauma that he has seen when he has worked with the abductees in hypnosis. And yet, he said that in many cases now, if they hang in there and they continue to work together, they seem to come to a point, some kind of a breakthrough. And they pass the fear, they pass the trauma. They end up with a new sense that the abduction experience is concerned with the evolution of their spiritual life in some way. And in that context, he has found, and this has shocked him as a psychiatrist, he said it was very difficult for him in the beginning when these episodes began coming out, and that would be an abductee who, under hypnosis, trying to deal with the abduction experience, is being taken back to their birth, trying to find out where these experiences begin, and he's suddenly, apparently, in another life, and in another life, the same beings or beings that look like the ones that were involved in the abduction in this life are in what appears to be another life. And so Dr. Mack himself, a professor of psychiatry at Harvard University, who 4 years ago did not, as he said, know what he was getting into, and has been finding his own curiosity provoked to the point he has studied and worked with 76 people, is now finding that the whole idea of reincarnated cycles, life to life, is becoming part of his research, and that the same alien beings are in these other lives too, that there's some connection between the alien beings and a particular abductee's current life. Now, what that is headed toward in terms of understanding the implications of all this for the human-alien interaction in the past, present, and future is a huge unknown, and I think that there will probably be more and more reports over the next year or two or three in this particular area, and I hope to